Okay, welcome back to another episode of Just Stories with BT. I'm so excited for this week's guest. Not only is he one of the main reasons that I'm even doing this podcast, but also because this is really focusing around our Recycled Dreams theme, which is talking to CEOs and successful entrepreneurs and businesses who have been giving back as part of their kind of strategy. I'm really anxious for you guys to hear kind of how Mark built their big podcast they have, how they kind of gave back and how it helped him in getting to his success. But we also want to tell some stories and be able to really get to know the person behind the podcast, right? So you are so used to asking questions to others. I'm going to ask you questions today, so I'll put you on the hot seat. So without further ado, thank you so much, Mark Quinn, for joining me today.
I'm so excited, Brett. Thanks for having us on. I think it's an awesome idea for the show. I'm so fired up. You're going to really put some stuff out there that's going to inspire people. So I love what you're doing.
So I appreciate that, and I hope so. And I'm so excited to be part of this family.
Heck yeah,
and
man.
and I will say this, I was thinking about it, and I was like, I'm gonna have Mark on, and he tends to ramble and he likes to talk about himself. So
Are
I
you
was
talking
like,
about Kinsley?
no, you. Um, maybe both, whatever. So I need the audience out there. A lot of people know you, but a lot don't. So I'm like, I need to give them the backstory, but I can't trust you with this introduction. I don't know how long you would do this. This could be a 10, 20-minute monologue. So I'm going to introduce you for you. Sound good?
Okay. Are you supposed to attack your guests? Is that how this whole thing works? Am I about to get like roasted? Is that what's going on?
No, no,
All
no,
right.
no. I'm going to just talk about all your highlights.
Okay. Have at
All
it
right.
then.
Okay. Are you ready? It's going to be rapid fire. Here we go.
Let's go. Let's go.
I'm ready. So, Mr. Mark Quinn, born in Iowa, did not grow up there, grew up in Houston, got to watch his dad do a lot of business, close deals. That's where he gets his awesome sales ability from. But he did move a lot every 2 years. And what that did is it created him to have to adjust, fit in, meet new people, hence his amazing and great personality. He has an older sister who works for Pure Care. A younger brother used to work for Map Firm, now works for Elements. So sleep is in the blood. His first job was as a DJ at a roller rink. We're coming back to this after this. FYI, I have to learn more about this. Big sports guy, tennis, basketball, skiing, both water, both snow. He was pretty good at it. Went to multiple colleges, but ultimately graduated from Stephen F. Austin University. His first major job was traveling around doing Brian Tracy sales seminars, just cruising around. I can see you selling it, hawking cassette tapes. Would love to get some pictures of that one day. Then you jumped into the sleep biz, working for Sealy with Serta, eventually Montgomery Ward, which is where you met your wife, who you now have been married to for 20 years. Pretty amazing. Congrats on that. Had 2 kids, daughter 2002, son in 2004. 2006, big game changer for you. You started at Leggett and Platt, which was a big deal because that would lead to a lot of your future success. In 2012, you were working with Mark Kinsley, your now partner on Dos Marcos, on an ad campaign that would launch hybrids, which was literally nothing. And you guys created a $1 billion category. So way to go. Kudos. And then 2014, the biggest year in your career history because you did 2 amazing things. You started and founded Spink & Co., farm to table mattresses from the UK, and you guys started the Dos Marcos podcast. So huge year, 2014. And then it happened, 2018, episode 69, the greatest accomplishment of your life. You had on me on your podcast. So that was just, big time. And then a small thing happened in 2021 right now, which was you launched the FAM, our new industry insider for news, podcasts, all things sleep, furniture. So
Well done. Were you really episode 69?
yeah.
That's so funny. Who better than you, really,
Hey,
to have there?
Who better?
Who better?
Oh,
That was
man.
a hell of a recap. I had it. That's a walk through time. Thank you.
Yeah, well, now we all know. We know your history. But let's backtrack just slightly. Legitimately, you were a DJ at a roller skating rink.
Heck yeah, man. Well, I mean, I mowed lawns like everyone did, right? And did that kind of stuff. And then I decided that maybe there was something else I could do. So I was at a skating rink. And this is back when skating was cool, man. I had parachute pants. You know what I'm saying? Like we would like do the whole thing and spend the whole night there and get dropped off by your parents. And then it was couple skate. And so anyway, I liked the environment, and I knew Miss Tate, the owner of the facility. And as a matter of fact, still keep touch with them to this day. And so a job came up, floor guard and DJ, and I'm like, I'm in. Give me that microphone. Let's spin some records, man. Let's get the
Did
vinyl
you
out.
have did you have a DJ name?
No, I didn't. I didn't. I should
No,
have.
just went
I
with
didn't.
Mark. His
I didn't
DJ
think about
Mark.
that. DJ Mark in the house. Yeah, I mean, it's back before DJs were cool. So I'd like to think I was at the beginning part of making the
Yes.
DJ cool and started in the roller ring. No, man, I remember doing stupid stuff too. Like we had a birthday party and they had a Scooby-Doo character for the kids. So I actually wrote a song, Scooby-Doo song to the Scooby-Doo theme song. So I sang
Nice.
that for them as Scooby-Doo like made his entrance into the just stupid stuff, right? But yeah, great. Love that job.
Did you have to also control the lights and those little sparkle things? It was like when you're ready
Oh
to slow down.
yeah.
All right, here's a slow song for all those couples out there. That kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
you know, I feel now that we're talking about this, I feel like there's a theme through some of my jobs throughout my life. So the DJ thing was cool because I could get girls up to the DJ booth because it's like you had to take steps up in and then you had this
Yep.
really cool sound system and lights. And so I'd invite girls up there and I let them work the lights, right? So hey, look at this cool thing. Look at all these buttons I get to control. Here's the microphone. So there's a position of like a little bit of power in that, right? And then and I may or may not have made out with a couple of those girls because you get them in the booth and no one can see you. So that was handy. And then later on, I was a bartender for a long time in college, and then I was in a band. So if you think about these jobs that like put you right in the middle of meeting girls whenever
Yeah.
you needed to meet them. So
And then years later, you would launch Sleep Geek, which I'm sure the girls just flocked towards.
yeah, man. When you tell people you're in the mattress industry, I mean, back when I
Oh
was
yeah.
single, I mean, you beat them off with a stick. It's like,
Oh,
the
awesome.
immediate attraction to that. I mean, no, oddly enough, though, right? I mean, I'm sure it's happened to you. Like you talk to people about being in the mattress business, and the conversation just evolves into, so tell me about your bed, tell me about a mattress, right? And so there's a connection, right? So
Oh,
it's kind
for
of funny
sure.
that way. But yeah, no, man, it was I don't know. I've been blessed with some pretty fun stuff to do. And Sleep Geek, yeah, that was a Kinsley was around. We wanted to create a community, and so here we are all these years later doing it again in a different way. But when we were at Leggett, think about it, Brett. Like no one had not control, but no one had a connection
Yeah.
to the retail sales associate. And I'm like, that's so stupid. They're the front line. These are the guys making it happen all the time. And so we just wanted to have a relationship with them. So when we wanted to learn our way into different things, we go straight to the source of the people on the front line. And then we could get a good data set. And actually, it's because of that community that we were able to test out the hybrid concept, right?
Yep.
And find out whether or not we had something there or not. And they were like, hell yes. They went away for 2 weeks and they're like, you close deals faster and you get bigger tickets. And so we knew right away. So then we created a university for them to attend, right? So they could learn more about the category. There's a lot of turnover with retail salespeople in the field. So we wanted a place for retailers to be able to send people to learn their way into the industry. So yeah, I mean, it was a great property. Glad we did that.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So, what, before I get into asking you some of your stories,
Hmm.
what actually got you into the mattress space? Like you said, was Sealy your first company that you worked with in the mattress space?
Yeah, it was. So Craig McAndrews, who is an industry veteran, he was a fraternity brother of mine at Stephen F. Austin. And so Steve Stagner and I, who used to be with Simmons and later on with Mattress Firm, we grew up in the same town together. And so we also went to college together at Stephen F. Austin. So Steve and I had already graduated and we were traveling every 7 weeks to a different city to represent Brian Tracy. So we'd go into these companies, right? It was a riot. So let's say it's a forklift company, right? No, I'll give you the best example. So here I am, a 23-year-old kid walking into a bank building on the 35th floor. And I'm talking to stockbrokers about how they can improve their life by increasing their sales and making more money, right? These guys are like, wearing Rolexes and all
Yeah.
geeked out and like Gucci stuff. And they're like, there's this 23-year-old kid that walked in and, hey, I'm going to help you like learn how to sell better. Right.
Yeah.
But here's the funny part of that. The best people in the room, and we would do forklift companies, funeral homes, guys that sold cardboard. I mean, it didn't matter. If you sold something, we were in your office. But the cool thing that I noticed everywhere, but one of the biggest takeaways for me was, I don't care who you are. The best guys always paid attention. like I was always intimidated by walking into a big room with 100 people and I'm like going to be center stage and I'm 23. Like I couldn't sell. I hadn't earned my stripes selling, but I could speak, right? And I could inspire through that part. But then I learned how to sell eventually. But I mean, when you're in there and you're telling these guys, but the best guys, they're always hungry. They were always taking notes. They were always paying attention. It's the guys who never produced that would like not pay attention to you and be on some device or like playing games or whatever. And so I just thought that was such a great lesson for me. And it got to a point probably halfway through that year, I would sit down with the sales manager and I said, listen, what are your issues? And they would almost always say, you know, there was a people thing going on. And they'd explain it. I go, I guarantee, don't tell me who it is. I don't want to know. I guarantee you by the time I'm done in 45 minutes, I will know who your best and worst people are. And I will be able to help you better. Every single time, just about, I mean, maybe 98%, I got it right. Because you could just observe through behavior, right? The guys who were hungry to learn and paying attention and asking questions, those were always your best performers.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I have a philosophy on flying, and well, I guess it could be any traveling if I was in a bus or something or train. But my flying philosophy is that I always try to give the people sitting around me, right, left, whatever it is, 3 opportunities to engage in conversation. Because, you know, sometimes you just want to like headphones on, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to bug you, but if you want to talk, I'd much rather talk on a flight than I would zone out or listen to music or whatever, you know? And what I've found is that there's 2 things I've discovered. One, everybody has something that you can learn from. Like everyone has a cool story. Everyone has something unique. You can learn something from anyone you meet, no matter where they are. But B, more importantly, I learned like almost everyone that really engages back in conversation with me seems to be really successful. You know, like they just wanted to learn from me, ask me questions, all stuff. And I'm like, and through the course of the conversation, over doing this I've done this for literally 20 years. I've just met all these great people. And I'm always like, man, that I just know already, all I need to know about you, I learned in 20 minutes on that. Because they were open and question, you know what I mean? You can just get it, you know, and just, I think it's probably the same thing you saw back then, even when you were 23, you know?
I love that. And, you know, a lot of times I'll put on headphones or something because I'm like, boy, if you get in a conversation with someone on a flight and they have that talking disease, then you're locked in for a couple hours and sometimes you got to work. But I'll tell you though, to your point, I've gotten some really great feedback and information and really good connections actually, just talking to people on a flight. And to your point, I'm listening to Phil Jackson's book, 11 Rings. And one of the things I heard this morning, and I'm going to screw up the quote, but it's a Buddhist saying, I believe, but it was something like, think less of yourself and more of the world. Right. And so self is small, world is big. And then something in line with that was, think of yourself as the only student on the planet and everyone else in it is there to teach you something. And so I love that. I think it's really important. And I think that's why I love your show and who you are and all that you've done for this industry. And you're just a bright light, Brett, and you put a lot of energy out there and you're always trying to help people. And I think it's stuff like that. Like, that's why you and I became such fast friends. I mean, like literally it did not take us time at all to like be great buddies.
Well, but that's the beauty of these types of format is that I could listen to, before I came on the podcast, I'd listened to, I don't know, 15, 20 episodes. I felt like I already knew you. Right. So I was able to kind of skip some of the stuff because I'm kind of like, oh yeah, well, I know Mark. I didn't really know you, you know, but it's funny you brought up Craig McAndrews because he actually gave me a very, very valuable piece of advice that I've used over and over and over again, which is, you know, he told me once, you know, be more interested than interesting, because I can tend to overtalk right in a room or tell stories or whatever it is and like kind of take over that setting as opposed to like learning or asking questions. And he told me that after a trip when I first kind of met him and was working with him at Mattress Firm years ago. I was trying to sell him on the idea of district training managers because that's what we had at Sleep Train at the time and Mattress Firm didn't. And I spent 2 days pitching him. And at the end of this trip, I was dropping at the airport and he said, hey man, you know, great time, loved it, learned so much. The trainers are a great job. Just FYI, I have a lot of experience. I've been around this industry a long time and you never asked me one question. And I was like, dude, literally it felt like someone punched me in the face. I
love that.
Embarrassed. I was like shattered. And he just said, in life, man, not just business, like it's better to be interested than interesting, and then just gets his bag and leaves. And I was like, I'm like sunk down in my chair. I was like, oh God, Craig hates me, you know. But man, I'm so glad. That was, I don't know how long, 10 years ago or something. That was some of the best advice I've ever gotten. And I've repeated it in my head like tons of times when I'm in a place like, Be more interested. You want to ask questions, you know? So
Dude, I
anyways, I'm glad
love
you brought that
that.
up, is that it
But
triggered that.
he gave me some really shitty advice. You want to hear what his advice was to me?
Yes. Let's read
Yeah.
it.
So we're all at the fraternity house in college and we had built a ramp and he's like, yeah, Quinn, you got this. And we were jumping a moped over the pool. Yeah, that didn't work out. He was totally wrong. I did not have that. And that moped did not make it over the pool.
And now it's your fault forever.
That's my fault. Yeah.
It's like when I was in 4th grade, we went on a field trip to Marin Headlands it's in Northern California. And there's this thing up there, they have banana slugs. So, you know,
Banana what?
Banana slugs. They're these big, long, yellow slugs. They're called banana slugs. And the myth is that if you kiss a banana slug, it's good luck. So this guy, who's like the camp counselor guy, and here's all these 4th graders, he finds this big banana slug and he's like, okay, line up everyone. There's 30 people in line. Everyone's gonna take a turn to kiss the banana slug. And I'm like, are you sure? He's like, oh yeah, it's great. You know, you're gonna have great luck. And I'm the front of the line. I'm like, oh God. But everyone's like excited about it. So I'm like, okay, you know. So I go down, I kiss the banana slug, and I did not have good luck. In fact, it was the exact opposite, which was I took a step up to like step over the banana slug and my foot slipped, came down, and then I smashed it and completely smashed the banana slug and killed it. And everyone was so mad at me. Girls were crying, people were yelling at me. I became the banana slug murderer for like my whole field trip. So
I've never even heard of a banana slug. And by
are
the
you
way,
for
what a
real?
great ad. No, never. I need to Google like a picture of one.
Google it.
But the cool part of that story is that's a great question. Like, what's the worst? Like, everyone's always saying, hey, what's the best advice you ever got? What's the worst advice you
What's
ever
the
got? That's a
worst?
great question. Yeah.
Whoever this camp counselor is, you really screwed me, man. So
We should find him and
we
beat him
should.
down. We should troll him on
So
the internet.
that's a perfect segue into my first question. So not even a question, you know, one of the things with just stories is I really like to hear from you stories and things that happened to you as you've kind of gone through your career. My favorite part about listening to podcasts, your guys, anybody that I really like to listen to is really hearing those stories of the guests, right? And so, you know, I'm really curious to know if you think back in your career, what is like the funniest memory you have from your career?
You know, I thought a lot about this because you were kind enough to give me a heads up on the question, but one came to mind, and it's funny now. Is that okay? It's not funny.
Yeah.
It wasn't funny then.
You're usually the best.
Okay, so I'm 28, Brad, right? And I had been working for Stearns and Foster in Sealy out of Dallas, Texas. So I took a job. Bill West, a good buddy of mine at the time, not at the time, but ended up becoming a great buddy of mine. Anyway, he was at Certain Inc. as well. And so I took over Sam's Club. I was 28 years old. Well, Sam's Club at the time for Serta was like 30% of the total volume of the company and maybe more in terms of profit, right? I mean, it was 52 million when I got it. And then they gave me Wards on top of it, which my wife was the assistant buyer for Wards. So Wards was doing 32 million at the time. So it's $85 million. I'd never managed a territory over 4 million, right? And so they're like, you want to come to, to corporate and be the VP of national accounts, and this is your responsibility. I'm like, hell yeah, I can do that. And I'm like, I cannot do that. There is I don't know why to this day they gave me that job, right? It's like, what were they thinking? It ended up going really well. But anyway, so my very first meeting with the buyer, Mark Grant, who's a solid guy. So I'm now living in the area that I used to travel to, Northwest Arkansas. So I'm on the phone with him and he's like, yeah, man, we got to do a product review. And I'm like, okay. And here's the new line. And I'm sending these beds in and I don't want to screw this up, And so he said, yeah, we'll do it at the Holiday Inn. I'm like, no problem. I had an assistant at the time. So I sent all this stuff to go. So we're there at 1:00 at the Holiday Inn. Everything's set up, the showroom, the beds, you know how it is. Everything's laid out. And he doesn't show. And my boss is there and his name was Jeff Antile. And he's like, dude, like, where is this guy? I'm like, I don't know. So I'm calling. He calls me on my mobile and he says, hey man, I'm at the Holiday Inn. Where are you at? I go, you're at the Holiday Inn. I go, you're not at that Holiday. I said, I'm at the Holiday Inn. He goes, no, I'm at the Holiday Inn in Fayetteville. And I go, where are we? Like talking to the lady, like putting water in the room for us, she's like, we're in Bentonville or something. Like wherever we were is not where we were supposed to be. So that guy had to hang up the phone. He's like, oh man, well, my appointment time, like I'm really busy today. I don't know if I can make it to you. And I'm like, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. So anyway, he was cool about it and ended up showing up, and it was a great meeting. But I'm like, you are the biggest idiot. Like in my thinking though, right?
Yeah.
Fayetteville, Arkansas, this little hick town, how big could it be? How many Holiday Inns are they going to have? Right. So it was a disaster. Oh God. But it ended up going fine. And then I guess the other story was Ligon and Platt had an Innovators Award. And so the manufacturing operations guy, and this award was really more about like engineering, design, that kind of stuff. And so at one point, Tom, a good buddy of mine, Tom Wells at the time, he's like, they were telling us about the JP Leggett Innovators Award, and we were in a big meeting, and they said, this is for smart people. My buddy Tom said, this is for smart people. It's not going to be for sales guys like you. I won that damn award that year. Because we had done a lot of work in the biometric space before we did a big launch of it at the Consumer Electronics Show. And it was a huge success. And we were really early, Brett, and one of the first groups to do it actually, with biometric sensors and all that stuff in a bed. And then we had a user interface that gave you an app and coached you up. And this is, I'm going to tell you, 10 years ago. Wow, and so we ended up, BAM Labs worked with us, and they sold that technology to like Select Comfort. But anyway, I thought that was hilarious because the dumbass sales guy like won the award, right?
Yeah. You should have made it into some kind of like motivational poster or something you could have put in your office.
No, and I made that guy who gave me so much crap, because as soon as he said it in the meeting, everyone was laughing at me and laughing at him that he said it. I made him present me with the award.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah.
So I have a Holiday Inn story. So since you brought up Holiday, I'm like, I cannot pass up this opportunity to tell this story. So
is that the chain that makes you smarter when you stay there?
I don't know. It did not make me smarter.
Okay, hit me with your Holiday Inn story.
So this is like maybe like 4 years ago, and I was at Living Spaces, and we were opening. It was when we opened the Austin store they had, so Pflugerville. And this is right when they started opening these water parks around the country, the surf parks, where they have the fake waves, where you can surf. And obviously, I'm a big surfer. And so I had never been to one of these wave pools before. So I'm out there for a whole week because we're doing a big, opening week celebration and opening nights and all this kind of stuff for the Living Spaces. So I went and did it, and it was really fun. I surfed this water park, and I was like, you know what, this would be so fun for someone to win. And I wanted to have a prize for Revive, which was the mattress department that I was overseeing, and so basically I bought a card that was good for like 2 people, like a day at the surf park with lessons and the whole 9 yards. And then I was going to present it to the entire team. With 110 people in that store on opening night. So I was going to say, whoever sells the most mattresses, basically the most money out of Revive over the 3-day grand opening, you're going to win this card. That was my big idea, right? And it looked just like a credit card, and it had Wave Park on it or whatever. So I'm staying at the Holiday Inn, I'm getting all ready, got my suit on for the big night or whatever. And I get the card, I make sure I get the card, I put it in my pocket. And so, during my time, right before the grand opening, I had worked it out so I could go up and make this big announcement about this huge contest I'm doing for this all day thing. It's like a $400 pack or whatever. So I'm in front of everybody, and I'm like, all right, guys, I tell them the whole thing. I'm doing this contest. And I'm like, in the winner, the winner is going to get this. And I pull out the card, right? But instead of putting my hand in my left pocket, I put it in my right pocket, and it was my Holiday Inn room key card. And someone goes, they're going to win the key card to your your room, your hotel room. And dude, the place starts. I mean, dude, people are crying. They're laughing so hard. And I turned so red. And I'm like, oh, I'm like scrambling, looking for it. I'm like, no, it's this old. I couldn't even get out what it was because it was just, and that it still lives on today. It's this whole, anytime there was a contest for anything, it'd be like, oh, well, Brett's going to invite you to his room if you win. I was like, oh God, dude, it just never ended. So, and I've never stayed at a Holiday Inn since. Just FYI, done. They're
well,
dead
and are you thinking, hey, I guess it depends on who wins?
No, I was thinking this is the worst ever, and I'm gonna be, and our CEO is there laughing at me. So, anyways, that was. So, moving on from my embarrassing story.
I love it. Keep them coming.
Switching gears, right? Which is, and I know a lot about you from listening to the podcast, but I'd really love for you to tell a story, thinking back at your career, of some time that you failed, right? Or that, you didn't succeed, or a really tough time in your life, and then how you kind of overcame it.
Man, there's so many of those, and I love sharing them. Actually, Kinsley, my podcast partner and one of my best buddies, he tells me all the time. And I was writing a blog forever called Q's Views. I don't write for it anymore, but it's still there. You can go catch the content, mquinn.com. Anyway, and so he was always saying to me, share your vulnerability because people connect with you in those moments. It's not the success or these are the things. It's that they connect with you in the times of your failure or the weak moments, right? And so I learned how to do that better. But one of them that I can remember, we actually talk about it in the book that we wrote, Come Back to Bed. It was this whole virgin mattress thing. And I was with Leggett. And so these guys, I mean, everyone, they convinced me that I shouldn't be going to work at Leggett because culturally I didn't fit, right? So they were a components company that always hired from within and promoted from within. But they wanted to change the culture and they wanted to kind of push themselves a little bit harder in the industry. So they ended up hiring me. And so I wanted to really be like, I wanted to help them come out front because they had been order takers, but China was happening at the time.
Mhm.
And so you couldn't just sit back and take orders, right? China was now competitive with our pricing and they were dumping into our market. So we had to get more creative and get more aggressive and tell our story better. Well, so we did a web series, and we were going to call it the Virgin Mattress. So the catalyst, or it was born out of the idea that I was about to get married, and my wife says to me, "We need to get a new mattress," and I'm like, "You're freaking crazy, man! We're spending 50 grand on this wedding or whatever the hell it was at the time." I go, "We're not buying a new bed. I got a $3,000 Serta sitting in my in my bedroom. Like, why would I do that?" She goes, "Your bed has history." Right? Because I had a life before I knew
Yeah.
her. So she wanted a fresh bed. And so we decided that we would draw on that experience and we just a virgin mattress, right? Like one that's fresh and clean. Because if you think about the idea, and at the time I was the chairman of the Better Sleep Council, and we were trying to say to everyone, hey, replace your bed in 8. Mattress Firm had a big campaign with
Yeah.
that at one point. And let's increase the purchase cycle. Let's shorten the time and get people in the market quicker. And so the idea, Brett, that you're getting a hand-me-down from your mom and dad, and your mom and dad had sex on that bed, right? There's this you factor to that. Like we wanted to like get people there, and it's not just that, but it's like, okay, so any hand-me-down bed, right? It's got history and people sweat and perspire and there's dust mites. And we wanted to create that pain point. So we created this whole thing. It was about the Virgin mattress and it was about a sleep shop and their adventures. And right. And the very first opening scene, the guys at the bar had this conversation like, hey, man, congratulations. 2 guys sitting in a bar. Hey, Rusty, congratulations. You're getting married, and are you getting to keep all your stuff in your apartment? And Rusty's like, no, man. She's like taking everything. All my Velvet Elvis paintings, all that stuff is going. And he said, how about your mattress? You can get to keep that thing so comfortable. And then Rusty says, no, are you kidding? She's like making me get rid of it. No, he said, yes, I'm getting to keep that part. Everything else goes, but I get to keep my mattress. And he goes, your mattress? He's like, guys, I got laid on that mattress. That's disgusting. I can't believe she's. So that was when that video hit, and I'm so stupid that I literally pushed it out to an entire company of 19,000 Leggett employees across the world. And I said, hey, man, this is really cool. There's 7 episodes. It's a web series. At the time, they weren't that big. It's going to put Leggett out in front. We're going to create our brand. And then it hit 19,000 people and they were outraged. And here's how bad it was too. We took it to Furniture Teddy's betting conference, right? And it was a cocktail party and Leggett sponsored it. And I was over all that. And we aired it on a big screen in front of all these people, the very first episode in total. And that hit and everyone was like, huh? That's not Leggett, and then the next day when it actually went live, I'm sitting in the back row with Carl Glassman, the chief operating officer, who's still a good friend of mine today. And he's an amazing guy. And my boss, Perry Davis, also an amazing guy. We're sitting in the back row and our phone just starts blowing up. And people back at corporate were outraged at the content. And they couldn't believe we said that and we published that and we put our name on that. So it was a total failure. And it was a major fail. And it was very embarrassing for me because here's this new guy who's pushing them and with all the best intention, trying to get them out of the place that they were. And I just felt like I'd let them down. And I felt like, they put their trust in me. And I feel like I disappointed them. And people were going to our CEO's house, David Hafner. This is the stuff that's not in the book. They're literally going to, and this is Carthage, Missouri. So it's a $5.5 billion company at the time, but it's still a small town and everyone knows everyone. So people are going to Dave's house when he's mowing the lawn on Sunday, demanding that I'm fired. Right.
Wow.
And so it was a total freaking disaster. But it's like in those moments, right? You just got to kind of go, okay, well, how do we fix it? I was in the boardroom on a Saturday. Carl called everyone in on a Saturday, so we had to address this issue, right? And it was just embarrassing. And the worst part of it was they trusted me. And I
Yeah.
feel like I screwed them on that. And, to the ownership, to the credit of the Leggett and Platt leadership, it would have been very easy for them to make me a scapegoat and fire me. It could have been, that could have been done. No problem. But they had read the scripts and they stood up and they supported me and backed me and said, nope, we own that. Everyone owns that. So it was a really cool experience from a leadership perspective. I got to see how they reacted to that. And anyway, so yeah, it was a rough time for me. But then the reaction to that, it's not what happens. It's like, how do you react? We filmed the second one, and so we ended up publishing that. But then after that, we did the Get Hybrid, and you can imagine, right? The sore spot, right? The tender meat, right? It's a fresh wound. Not long after we did the Get Hybrid rap video, and again, I gave Leggett a lot of credit because I said, hey, let's create a hybrid category. Kinsley and I. Let's create a hybrid category, and we want to do a rap video and work with second. And so we put all that together, and they were like, okay. I mean, after the Virgin mattress, a couple guys go, hey, let's do a rap video. It's like perfect. I mean, for the guys to go, okay, that says a lot about them. They weren't done. They wanted to keep pushing. They knew they had to evolve. So from the bad evolved something really incredibly good. So yeah, it was horrible though, man. Oh gosh, it was tough.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I don't know, just from my career and like looking back, I think of like my struggles or things that I would consider failures. I feel like for the most part, they always wrap around the thought of or that feeling of letting somebody down. Like that seems to be the thing that has always stuck with me more than any other thing. Like, oh my God, you put your trust in me, or you did this or that, and like I let you down. Like that just seems to be always like the one that just really gets you.
Yeah, and isn't it true? Like, I mean, can you think back on your failures, Brett? Like, where those moments, though, like what evolved from them? I mean, it's so easy, isn't it? In hindsight, you go, okay, that sucked, but look what happened as a result of that. Is it the same for you? Like, even the worst moments, like you find the good in that moment, right?
Well, and I think that's what, it's so cliche, but the great leaders I've seen, in my life that I've been fortunate to be around, have always used failures as the best learning opportunity. So I learned that early on in my days, working in clothing and then working for Dale all those years at Sleep Train and watching, some of the things that we would go through. And then it would never be like, I'm down on you, I'm down on you. It would always be like, okay, what can we learn? What can we learn? And then we move forward, and it's like those learnings are typically the springboard for like the next big thing. Like you guys said, you rolled that into the Get Hybrid, which ended up being a multi-billion-dollar category, and that could have been, who knows, someone else could have invented that or came up with that idea had you been gone.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And so you have to really pay attention. And I think the hardest part for me on failure, probably true for many, but it's ego, right? And so you have to really get your ego in check and go, man, you're going to fail. And I think that's what keeps people from, striking out on their own to do things because, there's a lot of risk in new things. There's a lot of risk in meeting new people. There's a lot of risk in starting a new sport. There's a lot of risk in moving. There's a lot of risk in starting a new, whatever it is. And you just have to reconcile that and go, I'm gonna fail. There is no question about it. I mean, I remember like my daughter was a big softball player and traveled all over the, country essentially. And helping a kid understand that, 3 out of 10 hits, right? That's incredible. Like that's great result. And so you're failing 7 times. That's tough. That's a tough life lesson for a kid. It's tough for us too. And so I just kind of think about that and I go, just, check your ego. And I love to fail. I hate the moment that I do, but I know it makes me tough. And I know that good things will come out of it if you're patient and you listen for that and you're intentional about that. And so, yeah, man, I mean, I've had so many failures and I'm proud of them all.
Yeah. No, I mean, at the end of the day, I think you're right on with ego. I think that is a huge part of it, which is, and I think a lot of it too is it's got to be about, the place with which you work or the people that you're around. It's really important to surround yourself with people who embrace that failure and embrace the opportunity to learn. And I think that's so much of it. I know, I don't always do it. I'm sure I've made a lot of mistakes as a boss, but with my team, I try to create an opportunity where, it's not that we look forward to failures, but that we expect, hey, if we're really pushing the envelope, we're going to have some failures. Like we're going to have some things not go well. So if you're not playing it safe, like things aren't always going to go perfect. But the key is then what do we learn as we come out of it? And if
No
that's
doubt.
always your mindset in the whole team's mindset, it's like you just know you're just going to keep rolling.
But that's so true. And if you think about it, like in a culture like you were talking about, if you create a culture of failure, right, and you celebrate it, and everyone knows that if you do something wrong, you're not going to get your head cut off, right? And it's like the guys at Leggett, they didn't fire me. We talked through the challenge with what happened, but and a lot of people saw that they didn't fire me, and to many people's dismay, probably. But it was a great lesson for me. And if it's not stupid and it's not repeating mistakes, right? I think if you create and you're intentional about saying, hey guys, you failed and I love you because you did that, because you tried something we hadn't done. What if he hadn't failed? Right. So if you celebrate failure, you encourage people to try things and fail cheap, fail quick, right? There's parameters around that.
Yep.
But if you do that, then, oh my gosh, like what can happen? I mean, my son plays basketball and there's a coach that, it's so funny because in school ball, in basketball, they're very regimented, right? They have lots of plays and they want you to do this thing. AAU basketball, summertime, right? Some of the best players, that's where it's really, really competitive. Those coaches, they're like, play. You guys know how to play. Here's some structure. Here's an offense, but go make it happen, right? And so that if you're like really locked in, then you're afraid to fail. You're afraid to try. You're afraid what's going to happen. It's the whack-a-mole. You stick your head up and you get smacked down. What are you missing if that's your culture? Like what incredible things are waiting for you, but you can't ever get to them because you don't encourage your people to try and fail.
Yeah. Well, talking about incredible things, like as you look back, at your career, which, you've done a lot of different things, obviously the highlight was, being a DJ at a roller rink, but you've had success besides that. And, when you look back at your career, is there one story you could tell that kind of like encapsulated a moment where you kind of looked and said like, oh my gosh, like I'm having some success, or like this is really cool. Like this is something I never thought I would achieve, like, can you think of a story around that?
Yeah, I didn't think of it until you just asked it because I made a note on this and what story to share. But the one thing I can say, like, it's not an event, but I think a lot of my success has come from people. So it's weird. Like I've always had someone with me during the best parts of my career. So when I was at CERTA, for instance, Roxanne Franklin is still at CERTA and she managed the Sam's business. Well, I was the head guy and she was my right hand. And when I left, she took it over. But I was good at stuff like 30,000 foot relationships, merchant, like all the business selling but she was a freaking incredible, like, detail person and the logistics and orders. And I mean, we won, I don't know how many supplier of the year awards there, in large part because of her. It wasn't me, but I had Roxanne for that phase. And I'm going to come back to her in a second. So I had Roxanne for that phase. Then when I was at Leggett, I had a guy named John Walsh who was, he ran the creative team for me. We had 40 people in our creative group. And so writers, videographers, photographers, all of that. So they all reported to me, but John ran it, right? And
Mhm.
so he was all the things that I wasn't, right? And then even now, like Kinsley, I mean, the relationship with him, he's such a close friend of mine. And like there's just stuff he's really good at that I just can't do. And I do other things. And so I just feel like the partnerships I've had with human beings, and there's so many other people, but I mean, literally, it's been a yin and a yang for me throughout my. And so Kinsley has been that for me, and I just in the journey to take the journey with someone like that, and to do stuff like writing the book together, to do the podcast together, it's so fun for me because you share those moments with someone else, and I feed
Yeah.
off of him And we learned together. He jokes around or says, he tells people that I'm his mentor, and I'm like, that's such crap. Like, he's definitely my mentor also. So we share that together,
Yeah.
and I just learn from him constantly. So anyway, I think it's the people. I think that's really what has been the catalyst for any success that I've had. It's those partnerships. But when I was at Serta, being 28, we took Sam's from where it was to being, much, much larger, into one of the top, bedding sellers in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because of my willingness, versus the last guy, to not be afraid and to lean into that business. We were trying to tell all of our retailers, hey, we sell them, but we don't service them, or because it was a wholesale club and it was low margin business, and you know how it goes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bull crap, man, let's go. I mean, if we're going to sell them, let's sell as much shit to them as we can. So we started promoting and driving it, and we grew like crazy. And so I think it's because of my willingness to take the heat, and be bold in that, and risk failure, that we were able to accomplish a lot. And like I said, Roxanne was such a huge part of that, and our factories at the time. So many people there. And then the other thing I'd say was maybe Leggett, because when I went there, it wasn't a fit culturally.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, and this kind of feeds into what we were talking about. I went to work every day, Brett, and I moved my family. We lived in downtown Chicago, bro. I mean, it was like awesome, right? We lived downtown, and I didn't have a car, and biking everywhere, and volleyball on the beach. It was crazy. And I moved my wife to Carthage, or Joplin, Missouri, small town. And that was hard to do. And then every day I went home, I'm like, I think I've made a huge mistake, but I couldn't say that. But I literally felt like every day I was going to be fired.
Yeah.
Because if you join a company and the culture is one thing and you think it needs to be something else, changing culture, that's tough.
Yeah.
And so the only way to do it, one of the ways to do it, is if you are not rattling the cage, if you are not pushing hard enough, if you aren't pissing people off, then you're never going to do it. Change won't come. Like, you can take little tiny steps, but you can't leave dead bodies everywhere, but you really have to shake people out of where they are. You have to push them. And I mean, there were so many days I drove home and I'm like, I think I really pissed that guy off. I mean, this could be it for me. Right.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I mean, many, many days like that, and the Virgin mattress thing didn't help me at all. But, I think it was helping Leggett kind of come out of like where they were and put them in front. And, they became a thought leader in biometrics. And we took it to Consumer Electronics Show, and we did the stuff with the hybrid, and, kind of created. So it was really kind of awesome to see them evolve as a company. And like I said, I was part of the leading faction there. Kinsley was too, big time. But it really was the people there that had to agree to kind of come along for the ride. So I think that's probably it.
No, that's so great. I love both of those stories. And, it really does, I think about, Richard Branson from Virgin Airlines and all his,
Oh yeah.
He's got a famous quote that says, like, if someone ever offers you a really good position that you don't really know how to do it yet, like, take the position and then just figure it out, and he basically said, like, listen, like, if you have faith in yourself, you'll figure it out. People who are amazing workers, who are adaptable and moldable. I've seen it throughout my career, and I know it happened to me, once in my career, where I took a leap and a jump to do things I didn't really know how to do. But I just was like, you know what, I think I could do this. And I remember calling one of my mentors, Brian Baxter, who I work with now. And I said, hey man, I've never actually done any buying before. And he just said, you know what, don't worry about asking people for advice. Just you be you and you'll be fine. Treat people the way, you want to be treated, and you'll be fine. And it was like, okay,
But one of the reasons I think you and I connect is because you're a fearless person, as I view you, right? You're so willing to put your content out. It's art, right? It's subjective and can be subjected to lots of criticism, right? And so, I mean, you're bold in that way too. Like, I mean, so how do you handle that exposure? And then, you're really exposing yourself to the criticism. Like, how have you handled that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that, I'm someone that throughout my life always struggled with insecurity and not feeling that I was ever doing enough or doing a good enough job. That was kind of that internal voice. And I think as I got older, um, I started listening to a lot of podcasts, started reading a lot of books, and like there was a common theme that kept coming up from the really successful people that I admired, which was like, At the end of the day, like it's very hard to be really successful if you constantly worry about what other people are thinking. And that was a really hard thing for me to overcome, especially with even like things like LinkedIn. I put out a lot of content, but in the beginning I was terrified. Like, what if someone doesn't like it? What if people don't like the videos? What if, well, and then over time you kind of realize like, okay, well, if you worry about that, you'll never do anything. You just won't do anything. And so I just said, you know what, whatever, I'm going to just go with it, and for the most part, 99.9% of everything's been great. And I've had some things and I've had some conversations where I got, people said things to me that I was, really hurt or really affected me. And then I would kind of have to remind myself like, okay, wait a minute, like I can't give away my power and let this person ruin all the other stuff that's been going well, and so, even with us, like doing these podcasts and these things, it's not easy to put yourself out there, but at the end of the day, if you've got a passion for something, you can't let someone take that away from you. And the number one thing that stops people, I think, from doing things like this is that they just won't start because they convince themselves before they ever do it why they can't succeed or why it's this or who might not like it. And if you live like that, shoot, you're
So
going to end up 70 years old and have never done what you wanted to do.
So do you, it's so true. So do you care about the comments that you get or the negative? I mean, are you like, how do you handle that if you get that?
Yeah, I think I do care, but I
Yeah.
think, you know, one thing that I've read, there's different quotes around it, but it's all kind of similar, which is like, if someone says something to you that, is in a position where you're not aspiring to be, then you just need to let that go, So in what I think that what that means is like, listen, if you told me some really harsh critical feedback, I'd really take it to heart because I look up to you. You've done this a long time. I'd be like, I'd mull over it. I'd really work on it. But if some just random person on LinkedIn I've never met who has two connections is like, blah, 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 said something negative, like, well, I got to let that go. You know what I mean? Like, what's the point?
That's a great
Um,
point.
so I think that's probably how I try to roll with it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think for anyone listening to this, I think it's harder these days, right? Even for our kids, because they're posting stuff and they want likes and they're very aware of their own personal brand. I don't think we ever were aware of our personal brand when we were growing up. We didn't have that really. And so, yeah, man, I hope people keep pushing because at the end of the day, we don't get anywhere good if we're just kind of in the same groove and the rut. It takes us to a destination,
Yeah.
but does it take you to the destination?
Yeah. And I think, for me, I've realized that, just for me, the only currency that I actually value in life anymore is my actual real underlying happiness and contentment, as someone who's a single father who's been through a lot of struggles as an adult, like, I've realized that, that those honest feelings that you're in a good place, that's really what matters. And so what's going to help you get there? And I think that people oftentimes don't take leaps to do things because they're afraid that they may fail or they're afraid of entering in new waters. But then you limit your happiness, you limit the things that you can do. And I'm someone that I need a creative outlet constantly. That's just how I work. So doing things like this is great for me, because I can push myself. But I think, the hard part for a lot of people is they don't want to leave their comfort zone or their boundaries of people they know, right? Because that exposes you and, it allows you to be vulnerable to people that you don't know. And that's a scary thing, for all of us, I think, but at the end of the day, I think what you learn is that generally speaking, people are good and people want the best for one another, and people want to connect. We've learned that during the pandemic more than any time in history that since I've been alive, right? In the last 40 years, like, hey, I want to be around people. I know it. I miss traveling. I miss business trips. Like I miss dinners. Like that's a huge part of life, is meeting new people and having those experiences. And I think coming out of this pandemic, we're going to have a shotgun effect of that, of everybody like, oh my God, I took a lot for granted. And that brings me to my last thing I want to talk to you about, which is, this idea of having a business model, or an entrepreneurial model, or being a CEO of a company, or having a podcast that gives out free content, that gives out ways for people to be better. Obviously, you just launched a book. The book's not free, so hey, you make a couple bucks. That's awesome. But previous to a book, previous to ever having a sponsor for the podcast, you had 5 years of putting out content and blogs and stuff to the industry, which is at the end of the day, a lot of them your competitors. So like, what was it that drove you to like, be like, you know what, I'm going to offer all this stuff up to people that I don't know and help them, even though at the end of the day, it could actually be worse for me in the long run.
Yeah, great question. I think it has a lot to do with my faith-based approach to life, right? So I'm a Christian, but a non-judgy Christian. So I'm not one of those Christians. Live and let live is my opinion, but no, just and so that's all about serving people, right? And so the best leaders are servant leaders. It's the ones that will push a broom and work alongside of you. I've always felt like that, watching my dad and seeing him kind of do it and interact with people that work for him. But so I think it starts with that. So it really is everything that Kinsley and I do starts with, well, let's serve our audience. Well, let's serve the people. How can we help them? And so it's that spirit of abundance, right? And so we love that. Like, and we feed off of, when we get fired up about the book during COVID, even, um, we wanted to write that and get in my prayer every day was just God put it in the hands of the right people, like that it'll help, that it will help them with their business in some way. So I think it's about that. I mean, if that's your purpose, and I'll tell you, it's also the same is true for a business, right? If you're in business to conduct a transaction and that's kind of what you're doing and that's it, then you will get a result from that. But if your true intention is to serve the people that walk in your door, or if you're a sales rep and you're for a mattress company and you're selling to retailers, if your real intention isn't to grab floor space, and Brett, you were a buyer. I mean, I can't imagine how often you saw this, but you knew the guys that were coming in to call on you that wanted to help you and help you grow your business and serve you versus get your floor space so they could sell more product. There's two different approaches to that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's all about like how you look at that. And so we love it. We take phone calls, Kinsley and I do, with people all the time. People, hey, you got to meet these guys. And we love connecting. And you're one of them, right? You do the same stuff. That's why we're good buddies. And that's why you're part of the fam. It's because you have that same spirit about you. And we want to help the people. And I kind of feel like, if you're giving advice on stuff, you could almost give your game plan out, right? Like write it up for your business plan and hand it to people. And the reality of them being able to do that as good as you is so small. Like it used to be, oh my gosh, we don't want to launch that yet or say that yet because someone else will grab it. It rarely happens. You know what I'm saying? Like they just don't get it. People don't get it in general in a lot of ways. So I was worried about that at one point, but kind of stopped being worried about that. But no, man, I think that's it. And I think that when you do that, when you serve people, what you end up getting back, and that's not why we do it, but the good vibe, the light you shine. My mom passed away in May. She used to tell me all the time, people would be jealous or envious of me when I was a kid because I was involved in things. And she'd say, don't you ever not shine your light. Right. So every day I tell my kids as they go to school, shine the light, right? And so if that's who you are, and that's how you approach business and human beings, then what ends up coming back to you so much more significant than what you gave. And so that's the cool part of that, I think. It's not what you're doing it for, but that's the ultimate game. That ends up being what happens. So I think that's it, man. I think it's just, I don't know, it's just a cool way to live your life and help as many people as you can, because there's so much joy that comes from that.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for sharing that. Sorry to hear about your mom.
Oh yeah, no, it's fine. Thank you.
I think that, there's no better in my mind, think about it with very similar to something that my man used to tell me, and I think about, I don't know if there's a better way to honor them than that, right? Than living that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what I'm starting to see is I see a shift in our society, where I think people are tired of bad news. I think people are tired of, fighting. I think people are tired of opposite views. And I think people are ready for good news. And I think people are ready to embrace uplifting one another and the idea that you don't have to step on someone to get to the next step. In fact, if you lift the person next to you up to the next level, more than likely they're going to pull you and throw you over the top. And now you're in this other place. And I think it's the age-old thing of like, you don't give to get, but the reality is the people, and at least that I've seen in my life, that seem to be giving, it seems like they typically live in abundance. And so, I think that concept is something that, I know that that's what this show is about. We're about talking about how you can give back, but I want to give more people out there in business, in retail, and furniture, and any space. It doesn't matter what you're in, to understand that there's a different way of doing things, and that the idea that your business is run on this static structure, and I do a sale and it's President's Day and I get the balloons and I blah 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 and like whatever it is, like A, that's, we got to move on from that anyways. But B, there's better ways, like doing giving events, partnering with charities. These are connecting to people's emotions on a different level. It's not an urgency. I have to buy now. I'm going to miss out on the deal, which creates no connection. Whereas it's like, no, now it's like, hey, I want to buy from Mark because he's given me all this cool stuff all these years, you know? And same thing, we've talked to all these different businesses and who run buy one, give one events. And you think of Tom Shoes or blah, blah, blah. There's all these companies now. And it's like people, especially young people, I think, they want to support companies who are giving back. They want to support people who have people in the organizations that honestly, with everything in them, is like, listen, I want to do well for this business, but I want to give. I want this company to be known more for its sustainability or for this or that or whatever. And if you're young and you're growing up, and you're starting to head into these big roles, which now our millennials used to be this, oh, millennials are young. Now they're not. Now they're 30, 35. Now they're running these companies, right? And so at the end of the day, I think it's a really great thing. When you look on social media and you follow people on Instagram, it's like, what accounts are blowing up now? It's like Tank's Good News. It flips on that account, has 1 million followers the next day. Why? Because people are starving for good and the bright side of life, And so I've just loved, as a fan, all the years that you guys have done Dos Marcos and put out so much great content and so many tips, like even in your book and now with the new pocket, you guys are always like, how can I help you guys drive traffic to your store, right? Like, what is it that I can do to help you? And I think that's the concept that I hope we can double down on. That's the concept that I hope we can keep talking about with the fam, highlight people doing those things, because at the end of the day, there's no reason this industry can't become a shining example of how you run business in the future.
No, you perfect way to come out of those comments, because I was thinking also, I gave a speech in Telford, England, to the National Betting Federation. And one of the things I talked to them about was there's a consumer list, right? So the question is, for the mattress industry, where are we on the list? Right. And so I said, look around the room. There's 400 people in the room. I go, who's competing with you? Right. And in that room is all betting producers. And a lot of people were competing with each other. And I go, no one here is competing with you. Right. And they're like, what are you talking about? We are an industry that we are on the list of the consumer's shopping list, right? We're either at the top of the list or the bottom of the list. So how do you get to the top of the list? It's by everyone together, like one group telling consumers that a mattress or sleep essentials or something can change the quality of your life. One voice saying that is one thing, but you have an entire industry moving in the same direction, saying the same things and talking about the benefit of sleep to joy and happiness. Then, oh my gosh, I mean, do you think we make it to the top of the list? Hell yes, we do. And we beat vacations, we'll beat painting the house, we'll beat, whatever those things are, buying a new, $4,000 bike. Sleep's a big deal. So place a priority on that. But if we are all in the same way, like we're in this boat rowing the paddles at the same time, right? And so if we all join together on that kind of thing, we're not competitors. Let's join in as an industry. Let's become what we should be, not what we are. Let's be aspirational and let's realize our full potential, because at the end of the day, there's a ton of potential. And we haven't even, I don't even think we've come close to seeing that yet. Do you?
No, not at all. Not at all. So man, dude, thank you so much. This was phenomenal. I loved having you on. Love being a part of this new fam. And at the end of the day, I promised you half an hour. It's been an hour. So, hey, I only doubled what I said. That's not that far off.
How long did you go with Kinsley?
I can't tell you that.
Oh, no, you have to tell, because I'm going to have a phone call with him right after this. I'm going to go, you weren't as interesting because he cut your show short, clearly.
Yeah, I think like 50 minutes. So you're 10 minutes more interesting than.
No, he'll just say you just talk too long. So that's what he'll say. But anyway, hey, man, thank you for what you're doing. I'm so glad you're part of the fam, because something is people like you that we want as part of this project, because the fam is going to be an awesome hub, and it's going to take guys just like you that aren't afraid to put out great content and share and shine your light and bring people to the table and help this incredible industry full of awesome people really get to where we should be and take a path that's going to accelerate everything for everyone. So I'm just so excited, man. I love who you are. Thanks for having me on, and best of luck. Your show is going to crush it. There's no doubt.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
All right. Peace. See ya.